In the fading light of the 1800s, deep within the mist-soaked valleys of northern England, there stood an ancient estate known as Blackthorn Manor. It was an enormous house of stone and shadow, surrounded by forests so thick that sunlight barely touched the ground. Travellers often avoided the path that led to it, whispering of strange cries that echoed at night and of flickering lights in windows long abandoned. Yet within those crumbling walls lived a family whose name carried both respect and fear: the Wynthrop. The Wynthrop family had been noble once. Their ancestors were scholars, physicians, and landowners who built their wealth upon generations of knowledge. But by the year 1823, something had changed. Lord Alistair Wynthrop, the head of the house, was a man obsessed with legacy. He believed that through blood and ritual, he could preserve his family's power forever. He spent years studying forbidden texts brought from the East, strange manuscripts written in languages no one in England could read. Servants spoke of him wandering the halls by candlelight, murmuring to himself, his fingers stained with black ink and his eyes hollow from sleepless nights. His wife, Lady Margaret, once known for her beauty, had grown pale and thin. Some said she wandered the gardens whispering names that no one recognized. The children, 3 of them, rarely left the house. The villagers who had once worked the Wynthrop lands began to quit, one by one, claiming the air around the manor made them sick. Livestock that grazed near the forest edge were found dead, their bodies drained of blood, their eyes wide as if frozen in terror. No one dared confront the Lord, but rumors spread that the Winthrops had made a pact with something unholy. It began on a stormy night in autumn, when lightning struck the chapel near the manor. The cross at its peak shattered, and the bell rang by itself until morning. The next day, Lord Alistair locked himself in the library and was not seen for 3 days. When he finally emerged, his hair had turned white, and his voice carried a tremor that never left him. From that night onward, the family changed. The youngest son, Thomas, was the first to show signs. His once blue eyes began to darken, turning a strange shade between grey and black. He grew sensitive to sunlight and spoke in whispers, even to his mother. The daughter, Eliza, who had been gentle and kind, began to scream in her sleep, clawing at her walls as if something invisible tormented her. Her skin grew cold even near the fire, and her reflection began to fade from mirrors. The eldest, Edward, stopped eating altogether for days, yet he grew stronger, his face sharpening into something almost animal. By winter, servants found strange markings carved into the floors of the manor, symbols no one could read. At night, cries echoed through the halls, not quite human, not quite beast. One servant swore he saw Lord Alistair kneeling in the drawing room, surrounded by candles, speaking to something that wasn't there. He left the manor that same night and never returned. The villagers, terrified, sent a priest from the nearby parish to bless the estate. But when he arrived, Lady Margaret met him at the gate. Her face was hidden by a black veil, and her voice shook as she begged him to turn back. The priest refused. He entered the house, recited his prayers, and by nightfall the bells of the chapel began to toll again. Yet no one had touched them. By morning, the priest's horse was found wandering near the road, but the man himself was gone. Only his Bible remained, its pages soaked with rain, and a single word scrawled across the inside cover: Cursed. As the years passed, the manor fell silent. Visitors who dared to approach claimed they saw shapes moving behind the windows, tall, gaunt figures with hollow faces. Sometimes faint music drifted through the fog, the sound of a piano playing, though no one had lived there for decades. The forest around the estate grew wild, swallowing the paths that once led to its gates. The locals spoke less and less of the Winthrops, believing it unlucky even to mention their name. But the curse was not done. In 1851, a travelling merchant from London, unaware of the manor's history, sought shelter there during a storm. He wrote of what he found in a letter discovered years later. He described a house still lit from within, though it had clearly aged a century. The air was heavy, filled with the scent of decay. He claimed that portraits hung on every wall, but the faces within them were not human anymore. Their eyes were stretched, mouths twisted, and yet their expressions were eerily lifelike. When he reached the dining hall, he found a table set for 5, dust covering everything except the plates, which gleamed as though freshly polished. And at the far end sat a man, pale as death, dressed in fine ancient clothing, watching him. The merchant fled, and though he escaped the manor, he was never the same. His hair, too, turned white before his 30th year, and he refused to speak of that night again. When he died, his family found the unfinished letter beneath his pillow, ending with the words, "They are still there." In time, the estate became nothing but ruins, overtaken by ivy and silence. Yet even today, travelers who cross that valley on cold nights say they sometimes hear music carried by the wind, faint, sorrowful, as if from another time. They say a single candle still burns in an upstairs window, flickering just before dawn, and those who wander too close have sworn they saw them, the shadows of the Wynthrop family, standing together at the gate, their faces no longer quite human, watching with eyes that reflect no light. The curse that began in 1823 was never broken. Some say it was pride, others say it was hunger for eternal power. But those who know the story best believe it was something far older, something buried deep within the Wynthrop bloodline itself. For when darkness takes root in the heart of a family, it does not die with them. It waits, silent, patient, for the blood to return. And when it does, the curse awakens once more,